Therefore, the third thing we must do is adapt to climate change, and especially rising sea levels. We will need local measures to protect individual buildings and developments, and we've been doing this. For example, we've built MRT stations with elevated entrances. When you enter an MRT station, you need to climb up a few steps before you go down the escalator. And this is flood protection for our MRT system. And if we need to raise the steps higher, well, we will do that one day. We also require new developments to be built on higher platforms. Instead of building 3 meters above mean sea level like before, they must now be at least 4 meters above mean sea level. And for critical infrastructure like Changi Airport Terminal 5 and Tuas Port, we are raising the platforms even higher, at least 5 meters above mean sea level. But local measures will not be enough. We have many older buildings. These cannot be lifted up or transported to higher ground. In fact, large parts of Singapore are low-lying, and we need to protect these low-lying areas as a whole. Let me show you the topography of Singapore. This is a map of Singapore showing the heights. The light green is the lowest parts, the dark green a little bit higher, the beige are the hills, and the dark brown are our mountains. But there are not very many dark brown pieces, so I don't think we can all retreat to live on Bukit Timah. Now let me show you the lowest parts, those which are up to 4 meters above mean sea level. That's where all the blue stuff comes in. You see, the island looks much smaller if those one day become at risk. When sea levels rise, all these parts will increasingly be at risk. Not underwater yet, but at risk like Chinatown used to be in the old days, high tide, rain, trouble. And if you look carefully, there's a long stretch along the east coast to the city, and zoom in a little bit, you might be able to see where your house is. So not only will property values be affected, but safety and livability also. And it won't just be if your house is in the pink area you're in trouble, but the whole city, because the roads and the trains run through the low-lying areas. Hospitals, schools, workplaces, all there. We can't lose a big chunk of our city and expect the rest of Singapore to carry on as usual. Therefore, beyond localized measures, we need to protect entire areas. And the way to do that is to build coastal defenses. We've studied our whole coastline in detail, and we've divided it into different segments. Some are more vulnerable than others, and we need different strategies to protect each of them. And we will have to prioritize the work, starting with the more critical segments, and in particular, East Coast City, or City East Coast, and also Jurong Island. I will talk about City East Coast, which is a long stretch comprising the city area and then the eastern coastline. Let's look at the city area first. We built the Marina Reservoir and Marina Barrage to protect the city area from flooding. Many of us enjoy visiting the Marina Barrage to picnic and fly kites on the top of the pump house, especially if we have little kids. But PUB did not build the pump house for kite flying. Its real purpose is to house 7 giant pumps. That's why it's so tall. When it rains heavily during high tide, these pumps pump water out of Marina Reservoir into the sea, so that rain falling in the city area can then drain into Marina Reservoir. When sea levels rise, 1 pump house will not be enough. We will need to build a second pump house on the opposite end of the barrage, and PUB has planned for this. So that's the city. For the eastern coastline, we'll need possibly other solutions. We've looked at other countries for inspiration. In particular, we studied the Netherlands. The word Netherlands itself means low-lying lands. Nether, low-lying lands. And half of the Netherlands is at most 1 meter above sea level. In fact, 1/4 of the land is actually below sea level, what the Dutch call polders. And polders is land, this is one of them, that the Dutch have reclaimed from the sea. They first build a seawall in the sea, in the water, then enclose an area, then you pump out the water behind the seawall, and you create dry land. And that dry land can be lower than sea level, and then you have to keep on pumping water out. The Dutch are famous for their windmills. But do you know why the Dutch originally built windmills? It wasn't to take tourist pictures. It was to pump water out of the polders and keep the land dry. I don't think windmills will do very well in Singapore. The only windmill we had in Singapore was Holland Village. And even that one is gone now. But polders are a serious option for us. We are building a small polder at Pulau Tekong to gain some experience operating one. This is on the northwest part of Pulau Tekong. If you come in from the north to land at Changi, you can see it. You can see we are building the seawall here, enclose the sea, and we will level off the land behind that and pump out the water, and this will be a polder. And we will use the new land for SAF training. Polders are one option to protect our eastern coastline. Because instead of just building a seawall along the coastline, you extend out with a polder, build a seawall further out. You not only protect the existing low-lying pink areas, but you extend out and create more land reclaimed from the sea, which we can use for housing and other valuable purposes. So that's one possible solution for the East Coast, to build polders along the coastline. But there are other alternatives. For example, we could reclaim a series of islands offshore, from Marina East all the way to Changi. Then we join up the islands, connect them with barrages, create a freshwater reservoir behind them, like that, which would be similar to the Marina Reservoir. And this solution will make PUB very happy because we will have another big reservoir and enhance our water resilience. Our 4 taps will become more reliable. What I showed you are just artist impressions. I prepared them for this speech to give you a sense of the possibilities. We have not done engineering drawings yet. But we will examine all the options carefully, and when the time comes, we will decide what is the best way to do it. This problem does have good engineering solutions, although they will all cost money. How much will it cost to protect ourselves against rising sea levels? My guess is probably $100 billion over 100 years, quite possibly more. If we only have 10 years to solve the problem, we won't have the time or the resources to do it. But because this is a 50 to 100-year problem, we can implement a 50 to 100-year solution to this problem.